guide me to my destiny, and that level of, it's fundamentally this very elusive word of surrender that we're grappling with here, and it's not something that gets grasped or held. It's something that has to be danced with and made love to at best, but maybe wrestled with from time to time. So tonight is the auspicious occasion of full moon. We're going into the full moon energy this evening. I don't know, did anyone notice today?
Yeah, well, I thought it was last.
If you're subtle, you'll feel it, that's for sure. Like, I think that it's something that it's worth paying attention to, but especially it's auspicious in that this is the combination of our the energy towards what we had set for the intention of the month. So as a collective, and if you have been working through or just witnessing for your own self what the challenges around this larger theme of prosperity have been coming up. So we started off the month gung-ho. You're like, yep, sweet. We pretty quickly ascertained that the things that made most people feel prosperous were not increases in material wealth, that it was fundamentally in assisting and helping others, and that seemed to elicit a sense of well-being at just witnessing and partaking in the sharing of the love. Last week we did the Sharing the Gold session, in which if we again were paying attention to our own intuitive self, which guided us, not me, it was a skeleton of a guided meditation. You fleshed in all of the detail. So what came up for you with regards to the areas that were difficult of that journey, that you were potentially disengaged or not attentive, things that you might have just had a challenging imaginative situation emerge? And then we look towards the things that were the easiest or the most empowering moments of that journey for you. And what we put forward was the idea that those things that came easy are your strengths. Those are your allies. The things that are challenging were the things that might be unconsciously unresolved or blocked energies. And there was some, I don't know, what was the vibe like in the room? Like, people seemed to get the reflection that they needed. I didn't give that reflection, your own unconscious did. So for me, who even did this activity kind of alongside you, even though I kind of knew where we were going with it, I still went on my journey. And I'd like to share a little bit of my journey tonight, and then I want to open the floor up to discuss if there's anything that has emerged for anyone here, and any gold that has emerged, or any challenges or any questions around that, and then for us to all benefit from either a working through of that or an asking of questions. For me, the most difficult aspect of that journey was connecting in that final push after we'd been to the moon. So we'd seen the moon, we'd seen the mind, and it was the final push to the soul, to the sun. And in my final push, like, it was there was like almost an event horizon or something. Everything was getting up to a point, maybe not event horizon, maybe it was just a threshold or something, that it was getting, the tension was building and everything was getting blasted off me. And then when I moved beyond that, the only thing that remained was this kind of solid gold sculptural sort of thing. And so I took from that I didn't really think about it actually. I set you guys homework to introspect over the week and watch what came up. Unconsciously, I set myself that too for the week to work on. I didn't have a crystallized understanding of which area was hard and which area was easy. It was just a general feeling for me that that final bit was the hardest, and it actually emerged in, I think it even emerged in the conversation during that particular session, or it might have been, it's emerged in a couple of different conversations, but the point that has come up is that the transition from third eye to crown is the hardest part of the journey. Like that's the biggest part to overcome, the mental, right? If you can overcome the mental obstruction, you're home free. You can do all the other stuff, but and a lot of practices will get you up to here. To get beyond is a really challenging endeavor. Indeed, I would say that it's like trying to bring a piano through the yurt door. You can't do that. Like the piano, like the ego and the mind will not actually go into the realm of pure consciousness or soul. Like that's the proposition at least, and that's been my experience. Now, when I introspect and I look at what happened to me this week, the most challenging part of the last couple of weeks has been in literally the transition into the final aspect of the moon prior to its full moon. So here the full moon symbolized the completeness of the journey, and it was the final step up to the full moon that really smashed me yesterday. Triggered all my stuff. Like I was tired in the body, tired in the mind, confused, pulled one way, pulled the other. We got back late from Horsham. Carly nearly broke both of my legs. Like I was, like literally whilst I was holding the baby, like without the baby carrier, like shit just freaking came out of nowhere, and really it felt like kind of assaulted me, right? It pushed me into my stuff to have to, it pushed me into this common fork in the road that I've been at, where I can see that I've got an alternative. I can see that I've got the option to soften, to surrender, to choose, to love, to let go of my nonsense. Or I've got this option to direct my nonsense back at myself and torture myself to within an inch of my life. And I could see that this fork in the road emerged, and I'm like, fuck, I really don't want to deal with this right now. I don't want to have to choose because it's a difficult choice. I can see the obvious benefit and the obvious downfall of either path, and yet being caught in that fork was unexpected, unplanned, and I thought completely unrelated to anything else that I had conjured up at that time. I was like, I don't know why this is happening. Why now? I'm working with the energies of the moon, and I check where the moon's at, and I'm like, okay, that figures. But the penny didn't drop yet. It was only this morning. So luckily I chose the right path. I didn't go down into my pits of despair, though I did dip my toes in for a little while and wallow, not completely wallow. I just kind of waded in the shallows of my nonsense and managed to have the conversations that I needed to have, managed to go and do some yoga, meditate in my own time and get my shit together a little bit, have a shower, like chill the fuck out and get back into my alignment. But what I shared to Rajni last night was that, so I went and did some yoga, and it left me feeling like, left me feeling good, as the practice does. And then I shared to her that afterwards, it's like the attacks didn't stop coming, but I could see them more clearly. And I was like, oh, wow, that's what this practice brings to me. That's what the yoga does, and that's what the meditation does. It does not stop the attacks. The attacks being, God knows if it's external energy, God knows if it's just my internal stuff. Both one and the same. It gave me the clarity, this like half-second buffer as I could see thoughts beginning to arise again. Instead of being caught and acting from them, I could see, if I allow myself to latch on to any one of these thoughts in particular, I'm going to spin myself into a worse and worse place. I even said to Rajni at one stage, whatever I put my mind on right now, I will take it down. I will criticize it. I will find the negative in me. I will find the negative in any situation. My attention is contaminated by something right now. I could see that it was. I'm like, okay, don't act on that. Don't act on that. Don't act on that. I acted on it a little, and I'm like, I don't like when I act on this at all. When I went and practiced, I came back and I had a little bit more distance from the thoughts as they were arising, and it allowed me to extricate myself from the BS, to double down on the practices and the devotional aspect in particular. And I'm like, I need help. I need help with this. I cannot do this alone. I need help. And in doing so, the thing abated and I got to sleep. And I woke up and I did some yoga and I felt good. And then immediately after the yoga, I'm like, I don't feel so good anymore. What the hell? This shit's persistent, right? And at some stage, mid-morning, I'm like, I have to go and lie down. And I lay down and it was like an all-body ache that I felt. Like I felt, yeah, God, what the hell? Until there was this momentary realization that what I had envisaged at last week's Sharing the Gold and what I'd set for homework was to evaluate the moment to understand with more clarity what went on for you in that little journey. And I did. The hardest moment for me in the moon cycle has been on the waxing moon right before it gets to full. Not once it's into the full moon period, which is, a sort of 22-hour period, the moon digit prior, and it's a distinct feeling for me. So I had this aha moment in the morning and I'm like, shit, okay. Like just as I imagined, just as my unconscious presented me in a guided meditation where I kind of knew where we were going and I was doing the guiding, my unconscious still was able to project to me, in actuality, what I find to be the most challenging aspect of my own journey. Now, if I follow the energy that surfaced yesterday, it leads to suicidality, reaching out for vices, depression, addictive behavior. I know that is literally the shit that can derail me and will make me want to end my own life. And now my unconscious has presented to me, it's like, right, this is the bit that you need to be vigilant of in order to cross that threshold into the soul. And then as the energy shifted this afternoon into the full moon's energy, it's like I felt like, oh man, I'm back with the soul. Great, cool, I've got that clarity. And so that's been my process. Like it hasn't been easy. And it was I take away from that a lot more respect with what I suggest as homework assignments, because I might just get tested on it myself, which is a really nice thing. So that's been my last couple of days, and that's been what I'm working with regards to trusting the unconscious to present to me dense, accurate, sharp, poignant guidance. That's what it is. It's guidance. That's the soul's guidance. It didn't speak to me in words. It didn't say to me, hey, watch out. On Tuesday next week, you're going to have a shit one and all your shit's going to be triggered. But the journey did kind of say, watch out, that last little push into the place, into the soul, where the moon energy is at the top of the head. that for you is potentially going to be your, got to pull on the chain, got to persist, got to persist, got to persist. But it wasn't persistence that got me across the line. It was surrender. It was the moment that I lay down and I was literally lying on the ground going like, I'm fucked. What the hell am I feeling? That's when the insight came. So the pressure came on. I finally lay down and then boom. Pressure came off. Here's your little bit of insight. Okay, cool. Good boy. Go along. Then the energy lifts. Yeah, that's been my couple of days. I'm curious if anyone has anything that they want to introspect or share or ask about, if any of the journey from last week has digested or made any more sense, or if you've had any more insight on it. Have you watched Chappelle's latest special?
I have watched
Yeah, it's so good. It's so wrong, but it is so good, and it set the world on fire as well. So it's interesting situation.
It's a super interesting one.
He is very sharp, and he doesn't have a malicious bone in his body. Like he's a comedic genius as far as I'm concerned. I don't feel in that any malice whatsoever, like just a pure kind of comedian that has zero, like, you know, he's playing it. He's doing the role that society needs. It is the role of the, you know, in the traditional cultures, the jester, the court jester is the one that was authorized to send up the king. Right?
Send up the king.
Like to kind of, that they were the one that they were like, it's permitted for the jester to make fun of the royal family, not anyone else. Right? Like, so there's a sense that it's a role that no authority ought have. No one should be not held to the account of the jester, you know? Like, if it's funny, it's funny. And if you can't be made fun of, then, you know, the grip on life is too serious, right? So it's such an important dynamic to have a comedian that is confident enough in themselves and is rich enough to not need to worry about any consequence to his actions, to then bring into the world that level of critique. It doesn't matter which side you're on, he will roast you, you know, and that's, I feel that maybe there's an interesting parallel in there, right? Because I actually heard Rogan talking about like his encounters with Dave Chappelle is that he's just genuinely a lovely guy. Right, that's how come he can get away with it, because there's no malice in it and he's just funny. Now, that love, that genuine love that Chappelle has means that his relationship to his own trotting on his own dick, so to speak, is he doesn't really care. And I think, you know, like potentially when you're looking at that balance between heart being that area which was weak, you're in that ego, you know, not ego in a bad sense, but personality center. Cool. What took the blow when you were playing the didge?
What took the blow?
Yeah.
Well, it felt like my entire everything.
Well, it's your sense of self.
Yes, yeah.
Your soul didn't take the blow. Your soul took the karma, because it's like, oh, you're getting roasted here, bro.
Yeah.
But like the soul, the ego got humbled. Right, and then the heart got its opportunity to potentially stand in and offer you that kind of the love still, even in the face of you feeling like you'd fucked up, right? Self-forgiveness as the quality first that emerges here. You can forgive yourself for having the ego, for having the appetite to go, I'm going to have a go at it. Oh, it didn't come out how I wanted. Okay, well, that's time to engage heart chakra. So even then, it was what I see as a potential teaching is that you didn't necessarily get to stand into your strength, but well, you you unconsciously manifested, because you've played the didge and you can fucking rock the didge, man. When your ego is not involved, what happened in that last journey with Rodolfo was just next level. That was a moment where the entire universe opened up and there was a freaking portal that shot through to the center of fucking existence itself. There was that much energy in the room at that moment. I don't know where you guys went, but I fucking dissolved into God knows what. It was such a profound moment. And the didge that you were working with Rodolfo instigated that, that helped bring in, I started chanting and so other people started chanting, and then it was the whole room going nuts at 3 a.m. in this Wachuma journey. And it was very, very, very special. And that you didn't play a wrong, it's just pure flow state. So technically there was that was pure flow through into the didge, right? What center was that one coming from?
Yeah, it's hard to say. It feels like my intuitive answer is all of them. It's not. But yeah, it felt like here down. It didn't feel like,
And that all of them is so that's kind of like 7 bowls plus the 8, right? It's a Hridayam or whatever. That's, you go through everything, and then that resides as a complete sort of thing inside of the heart, right? As distinct from the heart on the way up, then it lives as you as a complete thing from the heart-centered place, and that's the locale of the entire being. Just an image that came to mind. So your cloud was kind of like your space, your air. It was empty, right? What is required in order to take water and turn it into clouds? Yeah, right. So it's like there's maybe some elemental sort of build-up of the heat allowed this precipitation and some clouds to form, and you again were surrounded by that love. So perhaps even in the vacuum of, or the absence of that which you were kind of craving, which might have been that, well, you created the opportunity to get that love flowing in. It just cost a humbling of ego. Small price to pay to get a bit of love. There's unity in awareness, because it's not clouds or sunny. It's both and both can only be held from the highest part of you. And that is equivalent, in my perspective, of sitting at that highest form of consciousness inside of you, is to appreciate both. Heart, you look at the throat, right? And you're unified in expression too, right? Like you unify 7 trillion cells into one voice. Many different frequencies, many different modulations, but it's one voice that comes out of you. And the expression of both can be liberating. The witnessing of both can be liberating. And then the surrender of both of the polarity is really where unless the preference is surrendered for either, then there isn't unity, and one just begets more. So if you chase more of the light, then the clouds will build up and the duality will kind of just go larger, and the polarity will push further to extremes, whereas there is a natural sense of equilibrium. You'd be a sociopath if you broke up with someone and you didn't feel anything. You'd be like, oh, well, it means you're not capable of love then, because unless you're vulnerable and able to have your heart broken, then, well, it's a mental activity, or it's an intellectual bout of gymnastics rather than real life, which is a felt experience. And the danger with many one of the dangers that's relatable that kind of came up for me this week as well was that like unconsciously I can be drawn into poking around in the sewers of my being and like look into all my shit and indulge it because it's kind of makes me feel something to go through the pain. The consequence of doing that is that it can, where you put your attention will exacerbate or build that dynamic inside of you. So the capacity for you to place your attention onto the things that nurture you doesn't have to be at odds with appreciating the duality. You know, there's the kind of, the sailing analogy rings true for me, you know, it's like you could get onto the ocean and you could just fly the sail up and you're like, well, I'm just going to let it take me wherever I go. And you're like, okay, well, if you don't, you could just flop around in circles all over the ocean and you'll never actually get anywhere. What I see as like a good sailor would be someone who's like, yeah, no, I actually want to go to America and the prevailing wind is doing this and I've got some skills and sometimes I'll have to go this way and sometimes I'll have to go that way, but I know where I'm going as well. You know, the directionlessness sometimes, that the catch or the danger of I am pure awareness, I'm just watching it. It's like I'm watching my house get burned down from equanimity. It's like, no, like I don't think life is actually commanding us to be immune. Like it can be a defense mechanism of like, oh, I'm just going to watch it instead of actually engage with it. And then you go too far, I'm going to really engage with it and roll around in the mud. And there's some sort of happy medium that is the allowance but also the orientation to the greater aspect of self, whatever that is, and you know that's good luck. It's only the intuitive self that can feel. It's a feeling of being in the right spot, rather than knowing that you are, you know, something. You know, just an observation. You mentioned trying twice and I guess a few times as well in your response. So those can be little clues to the way that intuition, when I trust my intuition, it's on point. When I try to listen to my intuition, it's like, you don't even trust me. You know, you're trying to, like, are you trying? Like, I appreciate the I'm not trying to drill you on just specifics of words, but they can lead on to like, you know, confidence around, like sometimes there's, with intuition, there has to be the courage to go like, well, fuck it, I might be wrong, but I'm going to act as though I'm right on this and I'm going to see what the consequence is and go boldly. It's kind of like trusting the floor to carry you, trusting the ground beneath you. And that can, that amplifies the strength, it amplifies the power, and it placates, or it for me at least, it soothes the part of me that is, it's confidence, you know, it's an inner confidence, and conviction even is perhaps the word that feels its way. When I bring doubt, for instance, to this practice, I have had my ass handed to me. The little fragments of doubt when I've gone into pretty heavy encounters with this practice, and I knew that there was little bits of doubt and I was trying to pretend like they weren't there and I was just trying to gloss over them, that's when I've had the most snap back. So the honest self-reflection, that comes, if that's brought in prior, you know, you want to trust your intuition. Okay, well that means that it's not wanting anymore. You do trust your intuition, you know, and it's like, so suddenly the language that you start communicating to yourself around like, oh, I'm really trying, people reinforce, they create self-fulfilling prophecies that sell themselves short. Like, it's like, oh, I'm really working on this. And it's like, no, it's been worked on. I trust my intuition. And then watch. And if you make a spectacular failure of it, well, so be it. It's intuition. It's not reason. You may or may not. That sense is it's an energy with which one can carry themselves. And I feel that's the transition from here to that one, right? This one is I'm naked before God, so I'm giving it a go. This one is I'm still trying to see through and game the system a little bit. So that's why this practice works here, and why it humbles the ego most at that step. This is the bit of the death that allows something bigger to begin to come through and guide you. It's like, it's not my intuition, it's God guiding me, in the old speak. Like, if you were 2,000 years ago, you'd be a prophet. 3,000 years ago, if you had today, you'd be some dodgy medium or some kind of charlatan, playing with cards on the street, earning a bit of money. But if you cultivate that power from that place, it is a divine level of guidance that begins to flow, that has to be witnessed and experienced to be believed, which is beyond any technique. This is the kind of what many people have witnessed, say, around a guru, whether it's Neem Karoli Baba and Ram Dass's encounters. He wrote a book, the miracle stories. There's 1,000 miracle stories of Neem Karoli Baba, and they're all just little kind of mind-blowing, how the hell did he know that? How did he do this kind of situations? And I've had my sort of encounters with Swamiji. I've had them with Rajni as well. She's very, very powerful in that regard. And part of what I've been trying to learn with Rajni as well is my own skepticism towards it turns it down. And if I have more faith in it, it turns the volume up, and then even more comes through her. So, that's, very, very powerful energy to work with. But that higher level, again, I know you're engaged in other practices and stuff. It's hard. You don't get from there to there without an embodied guru. Fundamentally, in the traditions that I work with, that's the way it's seen. It's just otherwise, if you could get from here to there just by your own efforts, what are the safeguards to actually humble you along the way? How do you not just get caught by more and more elaborate tricks of the mind and the ego? And that, you got to have your eyes open in that space as well. The thing that makes a good guru is that they were a good disciple. That I wouldn't trust anyone or elevate anyone to the position of guru unless I could see that they were a legitimate disciple of something bigger than themselves. And the people that I call guru in my life are beings that have demonstrated through their embodiment conviction to their own gurus. And it's something that it's not well culturally appreciated, I guess, in the West, and certain personalities can begin to get elevated in certain manners. But when you pry behind the surface, there's maybe some other energies that are caught working people. Not malice. Most people don't set out upon the path to rob people or to pull the wool over other people's eyes. The blind leading the blind. People don't know better. I'm certainly not claiming that I'm leading. I'm the guy bowing down to Swamiji because I've had my experiences and I've had my ass handed to me. I don't know. There might be something in there, there might not be. energy of something else in this universe knows better than me. I have no fucking clue what's going on. Use me. If I'm meant to finish the toilet, allow me to finish the toilet. If it's unimportant that I finish the toilet this year or this decade, block me from doing that. That's what surrender is. Hey, I want to have a goal decided by December. Soul, if that ain't right, whatever, man. Tell me when I should have a goal. Guide me to my destiny, you know, and that level of, it's fundamentally this very elusive word of surrender that we're grappling with here, you know, and it's not something that gets grasped or held. It's something that has to be danced with and made love to at best, but maybe wrestled with from time to time, you know, but what's the line between the two? Between amazing, profound intimacy and wrestling and fighting, you know, these are a spectrum of energies, and there is a tension even in the most intimate encounter that is not just purely submissive or not just purely focused. Like there is actually that kind of dynamic in a loving exchange that doesn't have to be dominance of one or the other. So seeding the mind in that regard doesn't mean that like, oh, it's just this kind of airy, anything goes, no goals kind of self. It's like, well, that's like the dominant person in the bedroom going, well, now you're going to dominate me. And it's like, we don't have to play dominant and submissive all the time. You know, there can be also a rolling around of the inner masculine and feminine fundamentally that feels, I certainly feel when it's in alignment for me, it is as good as having two lovers inside of me. It's the best. It's oh God. When it's reflected outside in the relationship and then it's felt inside, you know, that's optimal living as far as I'm concerned. And, you know, I am always on the lookout for the way that my mind wants to domineer my intuitive self. And it's only through this practice of surrender that I've been able to get the little glimpses into just seeing where I continue to go into that. So, you know, maybe there's something useful in there. It's a bit of a rant about lovers, but, you know, it's Wednesday night. There we go. Thank you all for joining. Prosperity. This is the peak of prosperity. Two lovers inside of you. Your lover is this cosmos. She is your lover. Let her give you everything that you deserve. The only limitation around what she will give you is your sense of worthiness. And it doesn't. And I'm painfully aware of how much I still block that. So even participating in something as adventurous as this collective theme for the month has been really, really powerful for me to revisit this same theme. Like it's I can't even begin to articulate what goodness this has brought me personally. So I'm really blessed to have you all in the space, sharing, witnessing me go through my nuts process, sharing where you do feel comfortable, listening where you feel comfortable, whatever it is. Thank you all. Like I do appreciate it. You know, it's freaking cool. And I think we're just really starting something that's going to go from strength to strength. And what a better month. Like this is the month to kick it off. This is the theme to kick it off with, right? You know, let our sharings be prosperous too, right? For us and others. So with that, thank you. Good night. Bob.
Thank you. Amazing.
Thank you. Hey, it's David. Thank you so much for joining and tuning in for our weekly discourse and question and answer session. We hope that you got something out of it. That is a session that we conduct live every week in our retreat centre called Kailash out in the Grampians in Western Victoria. it is our absolute pleasure to share the ancient wisdom and practices that have been given to us. Nothing that we share is owned by us, nothing was dreamt up by us. This has all been given, and we feel that responsibility to give it on to as many people as we can for free through YouTube. So what we're doing right now, we've decided that Kailash is going to go big, and we're going to go big on YouTube. We want to share the ancient practices and the wisdom that has saved us from ourselves time and time again. It's literally saved our lives. We want to disseminate as much of this positivity as we can, and we feel that the best channel in today's day and age is YouTube. How can you help us? Well, if you're not subscribed, make sure you are. I'll tell you why. One, you're going to receive awesome content every week from me, David, my wife, Rajni, and the residents of Kailash. We're going to feature some of the sessions that we run in our retreat center, including more questions and answers. We're going to be sharing interviews with some of the amazing retreat facilitators who come into the space. And also, we're going to be sharing little snippets, little bites of some commonly asked questions. We've been in this game for a little while now, and we see a pattern. We see the same sorts of questionings arise in many different people. So we're going to be trying to tackle some of those big juicy questions that you may have on your mind. If you've got one of those questions, leave it below in the comment box. The other reason why you should subscribe, Project 2022. In the year 2022, next year, we are going to build our Kailash audience on YouTube to 2,022 subscribers. And to celebrate 2022 in 2022, we're going to give one lucky subscriber out of those first 2022 registrations the opportunity to win a completely free 1-week retreat stay with us out at Kailash. You heard that right. Over $2,000 worth of retreat given to you, all for clicking that button below. So what's your excuse not to? It's transferable, so if you win and you can't make it, or you're overseas and COVID restrictions, you can give that to somebody who may be able to travel, or you can postpone it to a later stage. So we feel that this is a great incentive for you to not only hit subscribe yourself, share this with someone who you know that this content is going to help along their journey. Years ago, when we were struggling, we didn't even know where to look. No one had answers for us. We had to fight out. We had to forge out into the wilderness by ourselves, and by the grace of our own gurus and teachers and guides who emerged on the path, we've connected to these ancient practices that have kept us in good stead. So if you feel called to share this with anyone that you know that might be looking to have a deeper, more authentic connection with themselves, please tag them in the comments below. It was an absolute honor to have you watch our video. This is the first, most professional-ish kind of video that we've put together, and it's been a laugh, actually. I've really enjoyed it. Just a few years ago, I would have cringed at the notion of even looking at myself on screen. But here we are, sharing, editing, doing everything ourselves, completely in-house. It's an absolute joy. So we honor and thank you for taking time out of your day to connect to yourself and to connect to what we're sharing. So we have a tradition around here where we say Jai Atmeshwar, and what that means, Sanskrit, Jai means victory, Atma, it's your soul, and Shwara is the divine. So we say Jai Atmeshwar to celebrate yours and our soul as the divine. So we'll leave you today by saying Jai Atmeshwar.